Welcome, everybody, to the February 27th Town Council meeting. And if you want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And would the Ross boys please lead us? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will have public comment. Anybody inside wishing to come up? You have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address. And you can talk about the subjects, anything else. We will have a second public comment on the presentations also.
Oh, great. Well, I mean, this might be somewhere in between. Tim Kelly, 62 Westview. I do understand that tonight's agenda is on our capital plan. A major capital project on the docket here in Farmington is the $17 million renovation of the 1928 building, part of our current high school complex. Today's plan in that respect is to turn all of the 1928 school building into town offices with an attached small gym, about 37,000 square feet in total. Now, a recent elementary enrollment study indicates that our grammar schools will be running at 95% plus capacity over the next 10 years. And there's apparently been significant discussions at the state capitol regarding expanded or perhaps mandatory pre-K programs. Any addition of more young students or programs into Farmington Public Schools would likely require more space. So before we go all in on offices with the 1928 building, let's just make sure we re-examine our total town needs and then work with the latest information available. It'll be important to think a few moves down the checkerboard, and I'm sure there would be limited appetite in our community for another school building project in the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody else inside would like to make public comment? Catherine, anybody online?
No hands raised.
No hands raised. All right, we'll move on to the public hearing. And that'll be you, Maureen.
Okay. The legal notice, Town of Farmington public hearing. A public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 27th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers on the town manager's proposed 7-year capital improvement plan. Dated at Farmington, Connecticut, this 22nd day of February 2024, Kathleen A. Belansky, Town Manager.
Joe, you want to go through the procedure first?
Yes, so
I mean, I can go through it.
that'll be even better. Thank you.
That's what I meant. So I'm going to go up and do a quick presentation. Then I'm going to call on Superintendent Greeter. She's going to do a quick presentation, kind of an overview of our plan. And then the superintendent and her staff and some board members are going to come up to the front table. They're going to go through the board's capital plan. Then after they're done with that, you guys will have time to go back and forth, ask questions with them. Then where it'll probably be time to take a break for dinner. We have some sandwiches. We'll take a quick break for dinner, and then my staff will come, and each one of the staff will come through, and we'll go through the town side of the capital budget. Typically, we don't take any action on the capital budget tonight. We just work through it, and then in March, when we have our operating budget, we talk about the capital again.
Perfect.
Okay. Good evening, Kathy Blonsky, Town Manager. Tonight I'm presenting the 24-25 30-31 Capital Improvement Program. The Capital Improvement Plan, CIP, is the planning document by which the town of Farmington plans for the improvements it will undertake over the next 7 years. For a project to qualify as a capital improvement, the cost of the item or the project should be at least $25,000, and the improvement should have a useful life of at least 5 years. Equipment or projects which cost less than $25,000 or which have useful lives of less than 5 years do not qualify as a capital improvement and should be included as an expense in the operating budget. Although a capital improvement may have a recurring or ongoing operating expense related to its purchase or construction, that expense is not included in the CIP, but is included in the operating budget. Projects in the CIP may be funded from a variety of sources: appropriations, bonding, a state or federal grant, or another source of funds. An appropriation can be from several sources, for example, the general fund or recreation fund. If a cash appropriation is from the general fund, revenues including property taxes support the appropriation. If the appropriation is from the recreation fund, the non-tax revenues, primarily user fees from recreation programs, support the appropriation. An appropriation is available when the budget in which the appropriation is included is improved. The capital improvement policy states the following: the town will strive to maintain a high reliance on pay-as-you-go financing for its capital improvements. The town's objective will be to contribute at least 2.5% of the operating budget's annual general fund revenues to the capital improvement plan. The capital improvement plan calls for the expenditure of $92,825,570 over the next 7 years. Of this amount, $39,342,750 is proposed to be funded through appropriations from the general fund. Bonding authorizations total $50,897,820 are also proposed, and $2,585,000 are proposed from other funds. I will now review the budget in detail. Bonding, proposed bonding. Board of Education, Westwood's roof replacement, $2,384,445. The roof replacement project was identified in the K-8 facility study. The Westwood's roof is the original to the building and is 22 years old. The project is also subject to partial state reimbursement. Fire Department, $1,400,000, Engine 8 replacement at East Farms Fire Station. The purchase of a new Engine 8, which is 25 years old, for East Farms Fire Station would allow the town to retire Engine 10, which has become costly to maintain due to ongoing repairs and maintenance. The current Engine 8 would remain a spare housed at Oakland Gardens Fire Station. $1.75 million for a Quint fire truck at Tunxus Hose Fire Station. A Quint fire truck is an apparatus that combines the equipment capabilities of a ladder truck and a water pumping ability of a fire engine. A new Quint would replace Engine 5 and Rescue 15, both of which are over 20 years old, at Tunxus Hose Fire Station, which would enable us to downsize the fleet and in turn reduce future maintenance costs. It should be noted that it takes approximately 2 years from when an order is placed to build a new fire truck. Police Department. $2,300,000 HVAC replacement, $450,000 roof replacements. In 2023, the town commissioned an HVAC systems condition analysis for 4 town-owned buildings: Farmington Town Hall, Farmington Police Department, Farmington Community Senior Center, and the Farmington Highway Garage. The report determined that all 4 facilities are in need of significant renovation to bring the existing systems, equipment, and control systems up to the current construction and energy standards in order to provide reliable, consistent, and maintainable HVAC systems. The police department was determined to be the most critical, as the systems frequently fail, require unscheduled maintenance calls, and are at the end of their useful service life. As an example, the air conditioning units were inoperable for an estimated 6 weeks this past summer. I'm proposing to couple the HVAC replacement project with the roof replacement at the police department. The police department roof is 22 years old, original to the building, and has leaks that frequently require repair. It is scheduled to be replaced in the next year's capital budget. The air conditioning units are rooftop units, and it will be more efficient and economical if the roof is replaced at the same time as the HVAC replacement. Proposed other funds. These capital projects are being funded by other funding sources and not through the general fund or taxpayer dollars. These funding sources include donations, state dollars, or user fees. $680,000 Meadow Road sidewalks. Funds will be used to design and construct sidewalks on Meadow Road from New Britain Avenue to Plainville Avenue. $25,000 Tinty Barn improvements. Funds will be used to continue with the multi-year program to restore the Tinty and Hind Farm barns. $15,000 Dial-A-Ride bus. Funds will be used towards the purchase of a new Dial-A-Ride bus. $125,000 recreation facility improvements. Funds will be used to install fencing and/or netting at Tungus Mead softball field and reconstruct the Tungus Mead field concession stand. $50,000 Westwoods Clubhouse improvements. Funds will be used to renovate the deck and patio area at the Westwoods Golf Course clubhouse. I will now summarize the general fund cash appropriations for the first year of the capital improvement plan. Board of Education. The full Board of Education submission is included in the capital plan and is listed on the screen. The Board of Education will explain each item in full detail following the presentation. Engineering, I'm recommending $25,000 in environmental compliance. Funds will be used for stormwater testing and permitting. Highway and Grounds, I'm recommending $410,000 in the Highway and Grounds Department. That includes funds for small building improvement projects, a new dump truck to replace an existing truck from 1998, a new Parks mower to replace the existing 2008 mower. Fire Department, I'm recommending $270,000 in the Fire Department, which will be used for the replacement of turnout gear, the last phase of a multi-phase communication upgrade, and the funds to hire an architect to develop plans to renovate the 3 main fire stations. Police Department, I'm recommending $142,000 in the Police Department. Funds will be used to continue to pay for body and in-dash cameras and to replace security cameras at the Police Department. Town Manager, I'm recommending $275,000 in the Town Manager's office. This includes funds for technology, for repairs to town buildings, and funds to hire an architect for the renovation of the current town hall. Community and Recreational Services, I'm recommending $150,000 for Community and Recreational Services to continue to fund the construction of a splash park and pickleball courts at the Westwoods Golf Course grounds. Westwoods Golf Course, I'm recommending $85,000 for the replacement of a 2001 fairway mower. Budget challenges. The capital budget as presented tonight is significantly higher than the town's capital improvement policy, and it allows us to make headway to meet the town capital improvement needs. As you may remember, last year's overall budget had a 0% increase in expenditures and a significantly reduced capital budget. This was necessary in order to help mitigate the impact of the state-mandated revaluation. Budget drivers. Unfortunately, this year's budget has its own challenges. This is not unexpected based on the town's long-term financial forecast, which predicted increased debt service due to the new high school project. Overarching budget drivers this year include limited grand list growth, inflation, and increased personnel and contractual costs. For that reason, it will be difficult to meet, let alone exceed, our CIP funding policy. It's a difficult balance. Conclusion. This capital budget recommends 4 bonding questions. In accordance with our financial forecast, bonding large projects, equipment on a consistent basis, and adhering to our capital improvement policies enables us to fund our capital needs. Drastically reducing our capital budget year after year is neither sustainable or best practice. On the other hand, it's very difficult to make up for all the reductions from last year's capital budget in this year's capital budget. The town council will need to balance the capital needs of the town with the overall tax rate. I anticipate that the town manager's recommended budget, which will be presented to the town council in March, will recommend a reduction in capital expenditures that is more in line with our CIP policy. Thank you, and I look forward to working with the town council as we review my proposed capital improvement program, and I now call Kathy Reeder for her presentation.
Thank you, Kathy. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to provide an overview of the Board of Education's capital improvement plan. The development of the Board of Education's capital improvement budget involves collaborative and strategic planning to maintain learning environments that are safe, modern, compliant with current building codes, and supports innovative educational programming throughout all of our schools. The Farmington School District's K-8 facility review reports, roof replacement plan, safety and security review recommendations, our technology plan, increasing legislative mandates, and custodial and principal guidance inform our short and long-term facility goals, included in our 7-year capital improvement plan. Here's a list of some projects completed over the past year. We appreciate the Board of Education's, town councils, and community support of our facilities through our capital improvement plans priorities each year. On this slide, you will see the current year's buckets or broad focus areas related to the 24-25 capital improvement requests, some of which include banking funds for the future, for future capital improvements, and some are projects planned for the 24-25 school year. As in the past, we use this system of organizing our proposal in these buckets to align with the town's approach to developing and implementing capital improvement plan. The total amount requested in technology for 24-25 is $500,000. This request is lower, but in line with our 7-year projected capital plan. This slide reflects the various technology investment areas we are proposing for 24-25 in accordance with our technology capital plan, classroom AV upgrades at Westwoods and IAR, AV equipment in the IAR gym, and the next phase in our network upgrades at Westwoods are some projects highlighted on this slide. Categories for server infrastructure, network equipment, and wireless infrastructure reflect banking of funds and are part of a phased approach to upgrades each year. It is important to note these funds are also supported by E-rate reimbursement. It's not moving. $140,000 is requested for an upgrade to our IAR generator. In 2013, a capital project was approved to install a generator at IAR Middle School. Approximately $40,000 remains in the account being used for major repairs. Due to the increased needs for technology and communication systems, redundancy, and emergency management, a request is being put forth to install an automatic transfer switch. This will turn the generator on automatically and provide backup power to critical district and town infrastructure in the event of a power outage. In all that we do, safety and security remain top priorities. This area provides funding for the continued phasing and upgrading of security measures with the district aligned to Farmington Police Department's recommendations, our security review recommendations, and the K-8 facilities review report recommendation. The request totals $420,000 for 24-25. Here are some examples of security items within the 24-25 security bucket. We piloted an upgrade to the clock PA integration at East Farms in 2022 and requested funds to perform similar upgrades at the remaining 3 elementary schools in last year's capital requests, but the project was cut due to funding constraints in 23-24. This project is again being requested in 24-25 with additional funds to complete IAR in Westwoods. We applied for and we were awarded a $96,000 grant commitment for a district-wide radio system that would allow enhanced communication between schools and with town emergency departments. This project is included in the capital security priorities for 24-25. The balance of the request is for continued planned replacement of components of safety and security systems which are reaching or have reached their life expectancy. The next area is code and safety compliance with a request of $150,000 in this account. The request for code and safety relates to complying with a new unfunded mandate of testing requirements for HVAC systems in all schools for $150,000 every 5 years beginning in 24-25. We anticipate that the testing done for commissioning of the new high school facility will be sufficient for this new requirement for the FHS facility next year, so there are no funds requested for FHS in 24-25, just our K-8 schools. It is important to note that we anticipate an additional $75,000 to $100,000 will be required in 5 years from now to adhere to the continued requirement for all schools, including the high school at that time. The mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, or MEP request for 24-25 is $89,250. The request includes replacement in the phased rooftop mechanical equipment project at IAR. Installation of this rooftop unit will leave 2 makeup air units and 1 heat recovery unit to complete the project in the summer of 2025. $224,000 is requested to begin design planning for renovation to the Union School cafeteria and library, which are out-year projects aligned to our K-8 facility review report. Noted in the K-8 facility review, Union School library and cafeteria are undersized, impacting programming and scheduling. This allocation would be used to engage in an architect firm to design a project for an out-years implementation. Bonding $2,384,445 is requested for the replacement of the roof at Westwoods Upper Elementary School. The roof at Westwoods is over 20 years old and is now in need of replacement. The photo to the left shows damage to the flat built-up roof sections, and to the right shows nail pops on the pitched asphalt shingle section. Roof projects are partially reimbursable by the state. Our reimbursement level right now is 30%. In addition, the cost indicated here is based on a 5% cost escalation between now and the project's implementation in 2025. This timeline is needed for the design phase leading into the construction phase in the summer of 2025. The next area is cafeteria equipment. Our request of $108,000 continues the phased replacement of equipment to avoid mounting repair cost and risk of interruption to dining services. It is important to note that recently purchased items for the FHS cafeteria will also be utilized to replace other district equipment upon completion of the new FHS facility. We again submitted the HVAC grant applications for our 4 elementary schools this year, totaling $15 million. Again, the reimbursement level is 30% at this time. It is, again, unlikely that we will receive grant status for these HVAC projects at this time, as there is a requirement within the legislation that the local share of the funding be obtained prior to the grant award, which is a timing challenge for us. The intent of this allocation is to further the design process for the 4 projects in anticipation of a separate referendum prior to the next HVAC grant application deadline, should it become available. It should also be noted that there is the potential for a temperature range legislation that's in the works that would mandate temperature ranges of 65 to 80 degrees for all schools in Connecticut. I will share some examples of out-year projects on the next slide. Here are a few examples of out-year projects within our 7-year capital improvement plan. Here is an overview of our 24-25 Board of Education's requested capital improvement budget. The total capital improvement request is $2,111,250 in capital cash, $2,384,445 in bonding for the Westwoods roof, for a total of $4,495,695 requested for the Board of Education's capital improvement budget for the 24-25 fiscal year. Our 7-year capital improvement plan is listed on this slide and provides an overview of the 24-25 request as well as out-year request. Thank you, and we look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you. All right, we'll take this time now to again open up public comment. If anybody inside the room would like to make comment, you have 5 minutes. Please come up, state your name, address, and make any comments you wish about the proposed budget items. Catherine, anybody online? Nobody online. All right. Then let's close the public hearing at 6:24 PM.
Sorry, I'm lost.
E.
Make a motion to consider the fiscal year 2024, 2025 to 2030, 2031 7-year capital improvement plan.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Kathy?
And I think you'll call up the superintendent and her team.
All right. Superintendent Greeter.
Call me pulling up my notes.
Sammy, why don't you right in front of that microphone? It's not letting you scoot all the way down to the end. Thank you guys very much for coming, and Superintendent Gray, thank you for your presentation. I know it always takes a lot of work every year, so we'll start with questions. We'll have everybody ask a question. We'll go through the order, and then we'll go through again to give everybody a lot of time to ask their questions. So Brian, would you like to start?
I had a question about the security things that are going on. Could you elaborate on the security that's happening among the different schools? Are we having any issues? I noticed that there was some questions about security for technology, meaning about firewalls and things like that. So what kinds of things are we talking about in terms of security?
I will have Matt answer the question specific to technology. I will say that we, every 10 years, do a security audit of the school district. We are in the process of that right now. So we will have another 10 years of recommendations that we will implement through both our operating budget and the capital improvement plan. I would say that, we really appreciate the town council's support and our Board of Education support of security measures that we've taken. We try to remain, at the forefront of school security and safety in our school district. And, we could go all the way back 10 years ago when the town council made a really strong, as well as the Board of Education, made a really strong commitment after we did our initial audit of safety and security, and we had a pretty significant influx of funding and security measures at that point. And then over the years, the last 10 years, that support has continued through, again, the operating budget and our technology budget. When we go for security grants, it's similar to the HVAC grant. You have to have that money up front in order to then, receive the reimbursement. And we have consistently been able to apply for security grants because we've been given the funding to initially purchase those security items and then receive the reimbursement. So we've been very successful in doing that. But I will have Matt answer some of the technology questions.
So items related to cybersecurity, firewall filtering, things like that, they fall under our operating budget. This particular category in capital deals more with physical security or communications related things. So the district-wide communications project is a replacement of the existing two-way radios that we have at each of our schools. Those only communicate at that particular school. We applied for the state grant. We already have a design proposal in hand, and that system will allow us to communicate between schools as well as with the Farmington Police Department and other emergency services.
We can't do that now?
We cannot do that with the existing radios that we have now. Those radio systems are more local and not FCC licensed. So, and then within that same category, we make upgrades, additions to our access control system at each of the schools. There are specific doors that we're looking at adding card readers on this summer as well, and those are the types of items that fall within this particular category.
Okay, thank you. Are there any risks that we need to be aware of?
That at this point, I mean, that's what we've gone through. We do, as Kathy mentioned, we have the security audit, and that's where we're looking at what recommendations there are. The card readers that we're looking at adding currently are, I would say, probably more that balance of convenience and maintaining security for security's sake.
These recommendations came from the Farmington Police.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a combination of working with our police department, who work with us on an ongoing basis. So every time we do any type of drill at the schools, our police department actually, are there, and they provide any recommendations. How did it go? Was there anything that didn't go well? They kind of test some things out while they're there. But we enjoy a very strong relationship and partnership with the Farmington Police Department. I think that sets us apart as a community. When I talk to colleagues in my position in other school districts, sometimes that can be it can be challenging. Here, it's seamless. We work together. We're colleagues. We, if I need anything at any time, I can just call the police chief or really any of the police officers and have someone on site very quickly. It could be for a variety of reasons, just being proactive, but they are right there with us at all times, so we really are very fortunate. So we do get recommendations from our police department, but we also have an outside expert that comes in and provides an audit of what we're doing, and that happens again every decade or so. The recommendations, the safety and security is evolving every single day, and so by doing this audit and having the ongoing relationship with the Farmington Police Department, in real time we know what's going on, but then also we're looking out years and long term, some of the current trends that are happening. What additional security and safety measures do we need to put in place?
If I can give an example, one of the doors that we're looking at is at the rear of Westwood School. We've introduced an outdoor classroom. We have some activities that occur there. That's a keyed door. Those are doors that in some of the recommendations popped up as, hey, you might want to look at adding a card reader here. Not only is it for quick access for safety reasons to get in the building, but it also provides us with tracking as to who's going in and outside that door versus a hardware key. So I mean, that's just one example of where we've taken a number of different recommendations and thoughts and said, okay, it makes sense to look at this door as adding a card reader.
It's the kind of door you don't want to leave ajar.
Correct.
Can't.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Patty?
I expect this is staying with technology. Kathy, I heard you say that it's lower than what our original capital plan would have been, in line with goals, but I know last year the technology budget was reduced by about $285,000. And in looking at what had been presented last year, this year's is about $75,000 lower than what was in that. So I don't know, 350, somewhere in a little bit north of that, lower than what had been projected. So I guess my question is what isn't being funded that had been or hadn't been, what isn't being proposed?
So there's a balance here of what's needed and what's realistically achievable, given the new high school. And some of what has kind of been pushed back a few years is a big chunk of that is the rewire project at Westwoods. So I'm looking to do a partial, really looking at the main office area this summer. That's the next school building in line. We've worked our way through the K-4 schools. Westwoods is next in line. The reality is Westwoods is going to be packed this summer. I'm hoping that summer 2025, while the roof project is being done, that I can then use capital dollars that would have been will be approved hopefully at that point, to finish out that project. So there's less in there right now. It's not the whole Westwoods rewire, it's a portion of it. In addition to that, there have been some ways that we've been able to leverage other funds throughout the past 2 years to do some classroom upgrades. The other, a large one, teacher Chromebooks is listed there. With the new high school, we are going to classrooms that do not have a dedicated desktop. So at this point, we should see somewhat of an overall reduction in in cost for teacher machines because we're moving from desktops to Chromebooks moving forward. So there's a number of factors, but the summary is it's what we need and what I think is realistically achievable without asking for too much all up front and which when I would not necessarily be able to implement it in the course of the next year.
What does the Rewire project accomplish?
So the data wiring that's in Westwoods is original to the construction. It's Category 5 wiring. We're planning on upgrading it to the latest wiring, which is capable of higher speeds. The bigger issue with Westwoods is that when that was constructed, none of the patch panels in the data closets nor the ports in the classrooms were labeled. So when something goes wrong and breaks, it's like hunting for a needle in a haystack. And we've done some work to trace things out and we've been able to make do, but this is a huge efficiency thing right now. Could we live with Cat5 wiring for a little while longer? Yes, but it needs to happen just from an efficiency standpoint to be able to address, and no different than any other systems in the building. It's 22 years old and things are starting to break.
And I assume by efficiency, it's your staff. It's
Correct.
people you work with. So instead of answering
Correct.
IT questions, they're busy.
Correct. Try to find the wire.
And then one related question, Kathy, you mentioned E-rate reimbursement. What is that?
The reimbursement for what?
E-rate reimbursement?
Oh, yes, Matt can answer that.
So
Matt does such a great job with E-rate reimbursement. We've benefited at all our schools. We're going to benefit at the high school from E-rate
Right.
reimbursement. We talked about that last year during the budget process.
I don't know if it's on a cell. I think it's still on cell phone bills. It's definitely on landline bills. And I believe on most other communications, including internet, there's something called the universal service fee. Everybody pays a little bit into the universal service fee. That money then gets pooled, and the federal government gives that back out to schools, K-12 schools and libraries, to help fund telecommunications projects. There's two big categories. One is service, so the internet service that you receive. We receive E-rate reimbursement for that, and I say in quotes because what they really do is they reduce it on the invoice, so we don't have to file to get the money back. They take it right off the invoice. The second category has to do with equipment, network switchgear, wireless access points, and there's a host of other small projects. We leveraged that reimbursement money this past year to purchase all of the new switches and wireless access points for the new high school. And the driver behind that is our district has a 40% reimbursement rate on that. So it was higher than what we were getting from the state. There are different ways to work with it, but that's where I try to be creative in how we do, with how we purchase our network equipment, how we're implementing it. Category 2, the second category for equipment, tends to run on a 5-year schedule. The federal government allocates X number of dollars for that 5 years. They used to do it based on the individual school. They've since gone to more of a district-wide approach, which is a little more flexible for us. We're coming up on the tail end of that, but I'm constantly working with our providers to figure out how we can best leverage that and maximize the capital dollars.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Sarah.
Sure. So I have questions about the HVAC proposals. And can you just explain a little bit more about, I think, number one, I kind of am curious as to the design cost. It's $120,000 per school and how we got to that number. And then number two, do we know if there's grants coming up? I wasn't sure based on what you said, Kathy. Is there definitely another grant coming forward that we could apply for in the future? Do we know that?
Well, we just applied for it earlier this year because we feel, that whenever there's a grant that's available, we should apply. But we aren't able to meet the requirements of the grant because when we applied, we did not have a referendum before that. So you have to have the money secured in approved in order to then get approved for that grant funding. So I know we've talked a lot with Kathy and Joe about this and different options that we might have when it comes to doing a referendum. The potential of if we really had a very clear design and cost, really, like sharpen the pencil on the cost and the design through the funding this year. When we know it's coming up, maybe we do an off-cycle referendum for that. That's a possibility. So we've talked a lot about trying to be creative because our timeline is different than the state's timeline for this grant. But I'll have Sam talk about the cost right now for the design that we have in this year's capital.
The cost, $120,000, was just based on other school projects, similar square footage wise and similar in types of the renovation that was happening with makeup air system plus air conditioning. It was right around $120,000 for each of them for, like I said, similar projects that have already gone out to bid in the last year.
Okay. And I guess just to clarify, so we've applied for the current grant, but we know we can't get that based on not having secure funds. And then, is there another phase of grants coming after that, or are we're just wanting to be prepared in case there is?
We hope that there will be another phase. I also hope that it just becomes part of the reimbursement. HVAC just becomes part of it. It hasn't been in the past, and as a separate project. But we are advocating with legislators that this has now gone through 2 grant cycles. Many districts have applied. It just makes sense that if you're going to be looking at a mandate for particular temperature range, that the grant continues because for us, this would be an unfunded mandate, but at least there'd be some type of reimbursement out there. So I don't know, Sam, if you have anything additional to add.
There's nothing written in stone, but I think everyone expects that there will be another round just based on the amount of dollars that have been allocated for the program versus how many districts are able to meet all the requirements of the grant at this point. They think there will still be another round after this.
Thank you.
I'll just go really quick. On the radios, Matt, are we looking how many, and does that include repeaters? Because of some of the schools need a bump of,
So it's an IP backbone system. So the schools will communicate with each other over the network. We're right now, it's like 100, I think we said 120 currently, with the possibility of expansion in the future. But, and the same is true, that the communication to the PD, that's where I get into technology that I don't know 100% either. But we've been working with we're working with the same vendor that services the Farmington PD to get in terms of the design and the intercommunication.
okay, are we looking to get every teacher a radio? Are we just looking at our door people, our nurse, our principals?
Depending on the school, there's certain folks that are identified as those carrying radios today, and that's kind of where obviously we're starting with school principals, main office, but we do have paraprofessionals with radios. At this point we may use a combination of the systems we have, but it will provide us much better communication between schools and also within the school itself.
All right, thank you. Keith?
Thanks for coming. I have a couple pretty general questions, I think. One is, I was curious about the scope of the goal at Union School with that design. Is it just an expansion of the cafeteria similar to what happened with IAR recently, or?
So really, it's going to start with programming, looking at the space that they have, looking at how the spaces are used, and then see what the recommendations are. I think everybody would love it if we had more space in both of those areas, but it may be that it's an alteration of the existing spaces. It really is all going to depend on, sitting down, looking at the uses of the space with the people that are there in the building. But potentially, it could end up being a recommendation for an expansion of those 2 spaces.
And then that figure, I think was it 224, I think? Maybe I got that wrong, but Is that similar to where we got the price for the ventilation bids? Is just similar scope to other projects that have been bid out, or is that a hard number that you've gotten?
I'm sorry, which one?
The cost that we had there for
For the design.
for that
Design.
those plans, for the design plans, yeah. I wrote in my notes too, it was 224 for the design plans, is that right?
Yes, that was basically a square foot, looking at the square foot of
Okay.
the two spaces, yeah, and projecting out based on a percentage of a construction cost there.
Okay. And then I had a question on the IAR generator. So that 140 number, that's to make it an automatic switch. So power goes off, power comes back on. So it's
140 plus the 40 that's still
still
that's
there.
in
So
the
it's 180
account.
total to get the switch.
Yeah, we've gotten several estimates over the course of the past 6 years or so. One of our original estimates didn't include some of the installation removal. 2 years ago, we went out and got an estimate, and it was just about 100,000. We went back out about a year ago, got an estimate of 120,000, and I just went back to them in the fall and said, okay, if you were to do this in June, what would it look like? And we're close to $160,000 at that point, and that includes a 5% escalation as well.
And can you speak to what town infrastructure is supported by that?
So Brian Rush, who's my counterpart on the town side, we work closely on the core infrastructure. Currently, we have systems that replicate, currently they're both housed here at Town Hall because we have an automatic transfer switch here at Town Hall. Previous to us moving it down here during the construction project, we had a system up at the high school and a system here at Town Hall. The two of them talk to each other, they replicate. We have the ability to bring each other's systems up in either place, depending if there's some particular reason, facility-wise, weather-wise, whatever it is. The new high school will have an automatic transfer switch. So we'll have that capability that even if there's nobody in the building, there will be consistent power and keep our communications, internet systems up and running. Irving Robbins, given that it is on the opposite side of town, has offered the schools an opportunity to diversify some of our infrastructure to provide that redundancy. So if we end up with a fiber cut somewhere on this side of town, we have schools that can still communicate as necessary because they're talking to infrastructure at Irving Robbins. Where that fails is when the power goes out too. In other words, a telephone pole gets hit and it takes both power and data out at that point. So the impact to the town or the benefit to the town is that Brian and I are looking at ways that we can diversify all of our infrastructure to provide that redundancy no matter what.
Okay. This may be too weird or broad of a question, but with this capital budget, is there any way to speak of where it might be? So last year, the whole town, we took a lot of cuts. I mean, capital got whacked everywhere, as we know. And so with this budget, I'm sure there are things that we need to catch up on. Do we know, is it possible to know a number of what percentage of this budget is like a catch-up or a make-good on things that we missed last year? Just for the sake of stating why, because my concern, I guess, in asking that is, on that CIP number, it's 2.5%, and, it's a big capital budget for the schools, and I think everybody here is in favor of getting the schools whatever they need, particularly when you talk about things like technology, and what you were just speaking about with the backup generator, security obviously is number one for everybody, things like that back door at Westwoods, obviously, we all want it, but I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around where, where could this budget have been if last year hadn't happened, so we kind of know where, what we're dealing with.
So I can speak to what we've kind of re-presented, that we took out of last year's budget.
Sure.
Included in that was cafeteria equipment. We received zero in that account last year. The $480,000 that we're requesting for the design was part of a larger request that we had last year. And within the school security grant request this year, there was $140,000 included for the clock PA integration last year that we held back from doing last year.
Okay.
On the technology side, specifically classroom AV upgrades, we had 300,000 in technology last year, which was specifically targeted at our estimates for the network switchgear at the new high school,
Okay.
and that was it.
So, not to make you sit here and talk too much. The classroom AV upgrades, just people be curious, what sort of things going into like an average classroom AV upgrade?
So we've had it's a multi-year approach. We've gone through the K4s first,
Yep.
replacing LCD projectors with interactive flat panels.
Okay.
The newer technology, supposed to come with a 10-year lifespan. They haven't been out long enough for me to really tell you that yes, they have a 10-year lifespan.
Yeah.
But they are an upgraded version of technology and much less costly in terms of ongoing maintenance.
Okay.
We've been able to do the 6th grade wing of Westwoods. I had hoped to get a good portion of the 5th grade wing done last summer or during this school year. That's why I'm bringing that back, and we're again targeting Westwoods and then moving on to Irving Robbins. So you'll see this again next year if I'm not able to actually achieve getting all of Irving Robbins done.
Okay. I think that's it for me for now. Thank you very much. I know this whole process is tough, and I appreciate everybody's time.
There's a bit, I mentioned it in the presentation, in security as well. We were going to do a clock PA upgrade to our 4 schools. We had already done it with East Farm. So there's some in that amount, but I can't give you a specific number of what it would be.
And I was also reminded that we had asked for 2 rooftop units at Irving Robbins last year. So this unit that we have, the 89,000,
Yeah.
was also part of last year's original request.
89, okay. Thank you very much.
Amy?
Okay, most of my questions have been asked already. So, just going back to Sarah's line of questioning on the 120,000 for each school, are those all gonna be done at one time, or can they be staggered out, so you do one at a time, or can you speak to timing on that a little bit?
That's a whole nother complication with the way this grant is being implemented right now. One of the stipulations with it is, as well, is that once a grant is awarded, you basically have a year and a half to complete that project. So if we were awarded all 4 at the same time, then we would be looking to do all 4 at the same time. It's not the ideal way to do it. Ideally, you would stagger and do 2 and 2. But it depends on if we're awarded and how many of the schools we're awarded for.
Okay, thank you.
But the design, we would plan to do the design for all 4 at the same time, concurrently.
And for all the schools that need new roofs, is the HVAC gonna be done after the new roof? Or are some being done before?
For the ones we're doing the ventilation, you're saying?
Yeah, for any of the schools that are getting a new roof, are the roof, it's better to do the roof and then all the equipment on top of it, but,
So for the Westwoods roof that we have in here, there was actually a chiller project to replace the chiller at Westwoods 5 years ago. So that rooftop unit there is new enough. There is a cost in there because we actually have to crane it up in order to do the roof underneath it, but we plan on reusing the same chiller there.
Yeah, and many of our elementary roofs are more recent, and that usually it's, 20, 30 years before we're going to replace. So, if it worked that we needed to replace a roof and doing the HVAC, but if we've just replaced it or it's a newer roof, it would just be the HVAC only.
and have you gotten estimates from companies to do the roofs, or is this your guess?
Oh,
as to the roofs?
this cost comes from, we had an architect put together a cost estimate for us, including, it's all inclusive with design costs and escalation, like we said, and everything.
Thank you.
Dave?
Thank you. So a couple things, but at first, thanks Matt, Sam, Kathy for, a great presentation and answering our questions. A couple things like the Irving the IAR generator, the automatic transfer switch. There was a conscious choice when it originally went in not to have an automatic transfer switch. So here we are today
putting in a transfer switch. So had we bought the unit with a transfer switch a number of years back, these dollars wouldn't be needed, just like these other places have automatic transfer switches, the one at the high school and all these things. So I think we're trying to just bring this equipment up to speed, and also with the different demands that you have, you know, and what you're trying to do programmatically in your networking and so forth. So I think it's an important project, and hopefully we can support it. I think they're in a tough spot with these grants. You know, taking a couple steps back, you know, the state used to, you know, HVAC became a real issue really out of the pandemic. So, you know, you had school facilities unit kind of start thinking about, along with all these municipalities, you know, HVAC systems that have been taken for granted for many, many years, you know, all of a sudden became a huge priority. And kind of to the point where they reallocated how they would fund HVAC systems. Before, if you needed to do an HVAC upgrade, you really wanted to do the whole building and then, or a partial building renovation with the HVAC. Now we have this program that allows us to get there, but the issue is you gotta earmark dollars up front to get the grant. That is a tough proposition. And I think what the state's trying to do here is that they're letting us now go into these areas for HVAC, but they're trying to tighten it up so that it doesn't get off the rails as far as the money never comes, but this is, I just, the council in general, the referendum, we're gonna need to help these people on this grant thing, because we're gonna need to get a referendum for them to access the grant. And I think Kathy accurately stated, you're gonna, with her conversations with the town manager, that they have to be as clear as day on the referendum, because those are the dollars that everybody's gonna know. But really, we're not that far along with bids or anything like that to actually have that comfort level that we've got the number where it needs to be. Am I?
Yes, I think by putting the design in there, we're going to have a much, clearer picture. We did get, it wasn't like we just put that number out there. But I do think as time goes on, when we did get that price, it was the first time HVAC grants were being placed out there, and there's just so many companies that do this in Connecticut. And it was during a time with like incredible inflation. So we saw this huge increase in HVAC costs. And so we're hoping that, that can maybe level off as more and more schools are doing this each year. It's not such a high demand. And then we go out for this design and have a very accurate picture by school of what that cost would be. That's more current, because we're using pricing from, a couple of years ago, right? Or a year ago at this point?
It was right, it was about a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
And I think, Sam, that also talks to you whether you want to do one project, the next project, or the next project. It gets a little cumbersome in this arrangement now,
Yes.
with the fact that you need a referendum to get the grant, that it becomes onerous on our side to kind of manage that. So I think we're also looking to bundling things from school. Before, it was a lot easier to go school to school to school. It's going to be a lot harder in this financial arrangement. And so when they come to us, I would think you want to bundle your projects. Granted, they're a little higher, that's a bigger grab. But as far as the administration of the dollars, I think it's going to be the way to kind of get this done. So I think that's also a new dynamic for the council to kind of wrap our hands around. Would you concur? I'm not a lawyer, by the way,
Yeah.
but.
No,
Yeah.
I've been around a while, and this is about as complicated a project, given all the different variables that are associated with this. So yeah, you're right. There's a lot of ambiguity associated with it.
Right. So again, we're kind of getting into the deep end of the pool on the HVAC, and there's going to be some swimming lessons that are going to need to take place on it. So I think I think we're good there. Also, the requirement now, every 5 years, you're looking at your mechanical systems. you know, that's another kind of outgrowth of where we're at. It's something that, again, is a new requirement that these folks have to manage. And again, granted, the high school's gonna come online, the commissioning's gonna be done, so we're kind of good. But obviously, we have other district-wide requirements that we're gonna need to do. So on that, are you looking to hire one company to do multi-locations?
So we're a little ahead of the curve in that we've been doing assessments of what we have mechanically in all the buildings for the past 4 years. Every 2 years, we've been doing that. But that's basically a functionality, making sure that everything that we have is working the way that it's supposed to. The difference with this new regulation is that you actually have to go in and take physical air measurements, airflow measurements at every piece of equipment. It's a different person that needs to be involved there. The engineers that we've had go through and check functionality, they don't have the licensing that's required in order to perform the testing
all the
and
airflows
balancing
and the balance.
that's associated with it. So likely it'll be, I mean, ideally, it would end up being somebody who's familiar with all our buildings. So if we could have that same company come in and do the work, that would be great, depending on where the numbers come in. But they would have to subcontract out to have the actual people to come in and do the testing.
Yep. And then, so I think we've kind of peeled that away a little bit. We know it's complex, we know it's new, it's, you know, but wherever we can help you kind of communicate that out, I think we should try to do that, because it is kind of a new dynamic that we're trying to.
Absolutely.
Trying to wrestle with. The clock and PA integration at East Farms, it went well, it went smooth, and it's working like pretty spot on? Good, okay, so, and that's just gonna be kind of, the other schools are kind of queued up for the same type of arrangement. Great. I think that's all I had right now.
All right. Anybody got a question for Scott out there? He's just
I know.
sitting all by himself.
He's just been there waiting
I'm
for a
ready.
good
I'm
question.
ready.
Sarah,
Team's
give him
doing
a good
great.
question.
Anybody
to see
want to wake up
everybody.
Scott? Matt, one more question, please, for the IER Gym AV.
Yes. So we currently have no projection equipment in the gymnasium. There is the ability to plug a microphone in and for a presentation, which we've used for the promotion ceremony. Unfortunately, we see it this year, and we'll see it in the next couple of years. They cannot hold the 7th grade class for assemblies in the auditorium. They are holding those assemblies in the gymnasium, which involves setting up and breaking down AV for those each time. At the same time, we've introduced programming in the PE classes that utilizes projection screens at the K4s, K6s, actually, at all K6. So there's a combination of being able to accommodate a larger student body in a place for an assembly, as well as tying into the PE curriculum that's necessary. And so I've got proposals in hand at this point, and moving that forward in capital. It was not on my initial list of, going to happen in the next year, but the driver of moving that up on the priority list for this year is the fact that we're running into logistics problems with holding a 7th grade assembly.
Student population.
Yeah. Yeah, and based on the numbers that we have now, it looks like we'll run into the same thing with the current 6th grade class.
All right. Anybody else have questions?
I have a follow-up question on the HVAC. Kathy, you mentioned the temperature legislation, 68 to 80 degrees. Do we have any more, it's kind of a multi-part question. Do we have any more information on timing and what would the impact be on our school day, on our students, under our existing HVAC if that legislation's in effect?
It would be a significant issue for our 4 elementary schools because virtually we'd be in good shape 5 through 12 with the new high school. We would not be able to meet that requirement in our 4 elementary schools. So it would disrupt learning. It could disrupt the school day. It could disrupt a full school day, partially, or full school day. We don't know how that's going to be written. We don't know if they'll give us time. It has been talked about probably in the last 2 legislative sessions, that this has been a push because it would end up in looking at air conditioning in all schools to try to attain that range, or at least fresh air coming in and keeping it at a constant no more than 80 degrees. I mean, you could do it that way too, but we could not meet that requirement. It's been talked about a lot. It's gone through. And usually when that goes through a few times, we know it's going to happen. It's kind of a warning sign for us to be working on it.
And would there be impacts in meeting the 180-day requirement?
Yeah.
So I'll just add that currently within the legislation, the only thing that is written in stone is that they have asked the Commissioner of Health to create standards of 65 to 80 degrees. So what they do with those standards, we don't know. But
Yeah.
right now, we will be seeing standards of 65 to 80 degrees from the Commissioner of Health.
Do you know how is Farmington unique, or are there I'm assuming there's a lot of school districts that are going to face this problem?
Yes, particularly at the elementary level, I think you'll find in the state. And I haven't, a lot of what they're trying to do with this testing and requirement and reporting and doing tools for schools every year, a lot of what they're trying to do is to create a better database of what the K-12 HVAC requirements should be. So I'm assuming that we'll see that, written in some sort of report at some point. But there's a lot of districts out there that have several schools that aren't fully air conditioned.
And I assume, like, law of supply and demand, if this comes into effect, prices are going to go up because suddenly all the schools are going to need to do it?
Well, prices likely will go up, but probably more importantly is that it's very difficult to get vendors to do the work that you're trying to do if every district is asking the same vendors to do that work in a 2-month period over every summer.
So being prepared is, thank you.
You'll hear similar messages when we come back in March. For some reason, there is a pretty significant focus on public schools when it comes to unfunded mandates here in Connecticut for some reason. I heard the other day, since 2015, maybe over 200 different legislative mandates have come to the school districts. It's really difficult because every mandate, no matter what it is, has a cost associated with it. And often it gets approved, often in implementer bills, and then we have a very quick turnaround, 4 to 6 weeks to turn it around. Instead of, in the past, we would get a full year. They would always say, well, if we're passing it, like say this year, we're passing it in 23, 24, we're not going to mandate it till 25, 26. And that helps us in a budget cycle. But when we haven't even proposed some of these mandates in a budget cycle, and then they come to us on July 1. So we have experienced that, and one of the drivers of our budget has been these unfunded mandates.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just had one quick follow-up question. This is for you, Matt. Sorry to go back to you, but
Not for Scott?
yeah, I couldn't think of anything.
I know.
On the E-rates, just going back to
Yep.
that, the E-rate reimbursements, have you built that into your estimate, or is that something additional that you hope to get once you?
So I'm a little careful about that because it's not a 100% guarantee. So when I build my budgeting and my proposals, I base it on if I was not getting E-rate at all. And just to make sure that we can still achieve what we want to achieve. And then once I know I have the funding available, the E-rate process requires a bidding process anyway. So you have to go out and solicit bids. And sometimes the pricing comes in close. Sometimes it's, no matter what, there's always, once I get to go through that bidding process, there's always the application for the 40% as well as part of that. So far, so good. I haven't had a problem, but it's still not one that I'd prefer to budget for the full amount and then go through the process to make sure we get it.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Keith?
It's not something we need necessarily tonight, but just as we continue these budget conversations, I would just be curious to get a breakdown of the full security budget. Like we have for capital, that is, because we have an idea of what you guys are including here. I would just be curious the costs. Again, the last thing I want to do is shortchange security. The vast majority of my family is in those schools, and so it's not just it's an issue for everybody in town. We all want the schools to be safe. It's really important, but just from like a practical matter, it was requested 2021 100, granted 100, requested 164, granted 164. Last year was 175, dramatic cut down to 50. So I get that there's some makeup in play, and absolutely security is important to make up that difference. I just want to make I'd love to see where it was and make sure that where those dollars are going to use for the sake of the.
Yeah, what I was going to say, the district-wide communication project came in at an estimated $217,000, which was higher than what the original estimate that we worked on. Like, this is an official proposal we have now. We worked off of an estimate previously, which I think it was 155 that they originally kind of did a budgetary estimate on.
So that was a previous estimate at 155.
And now we've got an official proposal at 217, I think is what it is.
Okay. And was the 155, like, to Dave's point, similar to our generator? If we had done it at that time, we would have saved some money.
It's a combination of things: increase in equipment costs, overhead. We also, it's the number of radios. We did, when we went for the official proposal, we increased the number of radios. And what's also important to note is that 217 is only the K-8 schools. The high school project, the high school radio portion of that is being done under the high school project itself.
Inside that, does that solve? I think anybody who's ever been in one of, I think any municipal building in town, but particularly the schools, there's no cell service, and that helps.
Not cell service.
So I don't care about cell service, but
Yeah.
I mean to say there's a way for people to communicate
Yes.
in the case of an emergency.
Yes.
And make sure that that's handled. And there's lots of people with radio, so.
Correct.
Okay, so that it's very important, obviously. And then 217. Was there any other line items you could?
I don't know the clock.
Again, if you don't have it, it's all good. I'm done.
Yeah.
The clock PA, if we added a little escalation, it was 125 last year, probably about 140 on that. We haven't asked for any revision on the pricing on that. And then we had cameras, radios, access points kind of lumped together at around 50,000 out of that.
Okay. All right, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything else, Amy?
No.
Dave?
All set.
Kathy, you mentioned our state legislature with a 200 plus, things coming through. Any other things we're not learning about right now about unfunded mandates that we're going to talk about more in March, or anything that you're aware of?
There are many, many legislative proposals related to public schools this year. And, they work themselves through. And often, my organization that represents superintendents provides testimony about the unintended consequences of certain ones. I do think everyone has good intentions. I wouldn't say that it's, over bad intentions. These are good intentions. It's just their money should follow a mandate. It shouldn't be something that's mandated. There's no analysis of the cost, and then there is this surprise to school districts. And that just seems to be something that has expanded over the last 10 years or so. And so I would say there are so many different proposals that I'm not sure which ones will actually make it through to be approved or get in the implementer bill. What we often find is the implementer bill is done, at the very last minute to try to get consensus. It's like a lot of things are thrown in there, and some of which we didn't even have testimony because we didn't know that it would go in there. So that's also feedback we've been giving legislators. We want the opportunity to give some testimony, just so that people have an accurate picture of, not only, the cost, but also maybe unintended consequences. A good example right now is they had changed the age for kindergarten, but they did it immediately, so districts didn't have time to plan. They also added a waiver to that. So typically in the past, students would have to turn 5 by the end of December to qualify to go into kindergarten. They changed that to September 1st, so you have to turn 5 by September 1st, but you could go in and you could do a waiver if you really felt your child was ready. And so districts had to very quickly, and again, time is money, right? Quickly plan for this and then have people available in times that are convenient for families to engage in a waiver that includes a test. Those are things I did not include in my budget for 23-24, and here I am having to implement it, and across the state we've had to implement it. So that's like one small example that if maybe we had a little more time, we could have said, either you make the age September 1, that's it. Most states are September 1 or October 1. We're very unique in that we're the end of December. I'm not saying, I feel one way or another. It just would have been, with the waiver, that staff costs that I need to have people available for that. And it took a lot of just time for everyone to come together and have a fair, equitable process for the waiver system. Again, it's just one example of going really quick, and maybe if they had said, this will be implemented in 24-25, we would have had all of this year, or I'm sorry, 25-26, we would have had time to plan for that and have a really thorough, comprehensive plan for how to go forward. So it's those types of things that we are seeing pretty consistently. And we just try to give feedback if, we're given the opportunity to give feedback.
Hopefully you are.
Yes.
So I'll give one last time for anybody else for questions for anybody here.
Everything I want to know, we found.
Does Scott have a question for us? I mean,
Yes.
So Scott wants to get the heck out of here.
I don't have any questions. I do look forward to seeing everybody very soon in person.
Well, then, I want to thank everybody for their time. Scott, obviously, for where you are, Kathy and crew, our people from the Board of Ed too, thank you for coming out. Obviously, we do have a tough task in front of us of looking for our needs of our children and obviously balancing a budget that's good for everybody in town. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do it.
My department heads are coming in now.
All right, so we'll take what did I say, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
So we'll come back at 7:30. All right, let's continue on, 7:36. Thank you.
All right, so we have here first Chief Colin Ryan. We're going to do the police capital first. Chief, how are you?
Good. Good evening.
How are you, Chief?
Good. How's everybody?
Probably be helpful to work off this document.
Got it. Page C5.
All right, maybe we'll start with the first one is our bonding. So we're recommending $2,300,000 for HVAC replacement and $450,000 for roof replacement. Our building now is 22 years old. The HVAC system is cooked completely, and our roof is not in very good shape either. We have had a study done that went through all our town buildings and has ranked the police department as the top one to get done first for various reasons. One is that it's a 24-hour operation, and not having any heat and air conditioning is not a good. It's not good for the police and the dispatchers and everything, and the administration.
The prisoners.
The prisoners too. We thought at this point, the roof was supposed to be replaced next year, but if you're gonna do the HVAC on the top of the building, it seems like it would be a good time to repair the roof at that point too. So one of the things that we talked about quite a bit is that which ones we would like to do first, and this would be the first one, and also because the chief will tell you that, and did very little complaining, thank you, chief, but they did have 6 weeks this summer, and literally 6 weeks this summer with no air conditioning. There's no parts that can't be fixed. It is in dire situation. So they kept on trying to get it replaced, repaired, Band-Aiding it, but it's really at its end of its useful life. So that would be, we're recommending a bonding question for that. Is there any questions on that one?
Anybody have questions about the AC? Well, I can speak from personal. I'm sure the chief can too. That system wasn't running from the first day it was up. Go ahead, Patty.
I just have a question, Kathy, about the, I guess, the timing of when this is showing. I mean, I know it needs to be done, I understand that. But I know the prior year's capital plans only showed improvements and didn't show a full replacement of the HVAC. So I'm just wondering, other than this analysis report that was done in '23, is there a reason why it's suddenly?
Well, what has happened is that with all the buildings, we have maintenance plans, but we never did a town-wide professional HVAC thing. With all the buildings and then the fire departments, we had a plan done. So when, over the last couple of years, this building, the police department, all our buildings, the HVAC, the controls have really been going. And so we did the study to put it together. In our plan, we've known that the HVAC is gonna have to go. We've also known that the roofs have to go, and in the plans, it's all out there. But we have never got real pricing for it, and so now we have the pricing for it. And it's all the plans and it's all in the study. So now all our buildings, between our fire stations and all our buildings, we have professional plans with pricing to see what it would cost.
And I looked through the other, it looks like the other buildings are now on this plan in out years.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Brian?
No, I'm good for this.
Dave?
I'm good right now.
Amy?
No, no
Keith?
questions.
Sure.
Sarah? Next item.
Okay, the next items are cash items, and that would be off this sheet also, is that we have technology improvements in the police department for $142,000, and I'll just briefly go through that for you. The technology improvement funds will be used to pay for the body and in-dash cameras and to replace security cameras at the police department. We do have a technology improvement plan, and every year, the body and in-dash cameras is an ongoing cost that we have to do, and then we have to replace the security cameras at the police department. And I think, what did we write here for that? So we have a little bit
Yeah,
more.
there's some blind spots in the police department that currently don't have the video access to it. It's about 30 cameras that would be replaced, and these cameras haven't been replaced since the building was constructed roughly 22 years ago.
Yep, we were able to replace the infrastructure earlier this year because of, we had a situation where our cameras were not recording. So we were able to find some money to actually do the infrastructure part. So the $75,000 on the back end of the 142 is for the replacement of the actual cameras and to fill a couple of the voids that Kat represented that currently are uncovered by camera. So all these cameras are end of life. They're, old technology, they're analog technology, and we want to upgrade them to the IP protocol technology going forward.
And it's $67,000 will be for the body cameras and $75,000 for the building
Building
cameras.
cameras,
That's the breakout,
And that the body cameras, that's the mandate from the state?
yes.
Yeah, that's the body cam 5-year contract, and this will be year 3. And then at 27, 28, we don't know what that number will go to, but it's 67,000 for the next 3 years.
Does that include storage?
That's for the cloud storage.
Cloud storage?
Yeah.
Anybody have questions for the chief?
Yeah, just one. I see last year we did 70,000, this year it's 142. Are we making up for some cuts that were made last year, or is it just more additional stuff that needs to be done now?
No, the 70,000 line item last year was solely for the Axon body cameras. This year, it's the body cameras plus the replacement of the physical cameras at the PD. So it's two different things, the body cameras that the officers wear on the uniforms and the physical cameras that are around the building and the parking lot.
Okay, well, I just want to say also, thanks for everything you guys do.
Yeah, no problem, thank you.
Any other questions? Next item.
All right, that is it for the chief for the technology and for this year's capital. Yep. Yep.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Tell the troops I say hello, and
will.
thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, take care.
Next time, bring the dog.
Yeah, he was here last time, I'll have to see what's going on with that. Yeah, yeah, that would be a
Working.
conflict.
It's the most popular being in town.
Take care.
Be safe.
We have Tom, our fire director here. Tom, if you want to come on up. Hi, Tom, how are you?
Good.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Good, thank you. Thank
Everyone
you for
knows
coming
Tom.
out.
He's our fire director. We'll start with Tom with our bonding questions. We have two bonding questions. One is $1.4 million to replace Engine 8 at East Farms Fire Station, and the other one is $1.75, a Quint fire truck at Tunxus Hose Fire Station. The replacement of Engine 8, the purchase of the new Engine 8, which is 25 years old for East Farms, would allow the town to retire Engine 10, which has become costly to maintain due to ongoing repairs and maintenance. The current Engine 8 would remain a spare housed at Oakland Gardens Fire Station. The second one would be a Quint. This is a Quint fire truck is an apparatus that combines equipment capabilities of a ladder truck and a water pumping ability of a fire engine. The new Quint would replace Engine 5 and Rescue 15, both which are over 20 years old at Tunxus Hose, which would enable us to downsize the fleet and in turn reduce maintenance cost. And it should be noted that it's approximately 2 years from when you order to replace new fire trucks, so it takes quite a long time to do it. These, both of these trucks are old. The one engine, to purchase a new Engine 8 would allow us to retire Engine 10. And East Farms Station, we've had significant problems with our engines, and we're using spares instead of the regular ones, and the engines are old, and it's time for replacement for sure.
It's pretty amazing to, you don't realize how much those vehicles get used. You think they're just sitting in those bays, but they really do take a lot of wear and tear as they go out for calls for service. Anybody have questions for Tom about the fire trucks? Go ahead, Patty.
I have a couple. What's the typical lifespan of the ones that are being replaced? So an engine, the rescue.
So typically, a fire engine, depending on where it is, the larger cities that run busier, they can be replaced every 8 to 10 years, but the NFPA standard is 20 years for replacement. But 15 years is considered a good lifespan for a fire apparatus.
Historically, in the town here, we aim for 20. Sometimes it's because of how long it takes to get a fire truck and things like that. We usually aim for 20 to put it like on the ballot, and then it takes a couple of years to build it. So our trucks are usually a little bit older than that when it all is said and done. Obviously, one of these is already 25 years old. We don't try, if we're not having a lot of maintenance trouble with it or things like that, we don't push to have them replaced because they're expensive. But we do have an apparatus plan, and one of the things that Tom has been doing since he's been employed with us is really looking at our apparatus and trying to consolidate some of it. And that's one of the things we're doing at Tunxus Hose, is that we're going to be getting rid of 2 pieces of equipment and bringing on just one, which will save us some money. And we're going to also be looking at that town-wide every time there is a replacement. If we can reduce some of our equipment, if it's appropriate, we want to do that.
And Engine 8, the notes say Engine 8 will also allow Engine 10 to be retired. So does this effectively mean, is there currently an Engine 8 and this is now going to replace 2?
So there's a current Engine 8, which is supposed to be the spare for that East Farms Fire Department. Because we've been having so many issues with engine 10 and it's been needing so many repairs, we've actually been using engine 8 as the main one because engine 10 has been offline. So what would happen is we would get a new engine 8, retire engine 10, get rid of that, and I guess we'd have 2 8s, so we'd have to come up with a new number. And the current engine 8, which would now be the old engine 8, would remain the spare.
What makes it confusing is that usually you're replacing your spare, and we are, but our spare right now is being used as the main engine, because the engine that's really giving us trouble is engine 10, which has been trouble for the whole year. So we were basically had no engine on able, so we had to pull the spare in, and the spare was being used all the time.
And is there a reason why engine 10 hasn't been on the capital plan? Because I see 8, 9 in prior years.
It's newer.
What was that?
It's 'cause it's newer.
Okay. No, I'm not sure why.
Okay.
Oh, maybe Joe, yeah.
Yeah, engine 10 is only, what, 10 years old.
Oh, that's right.
So it doesn't really, it wouldn't be on the, if engine 10 were working correctly, it wouldn't show up on this plan for another couple of years. You would start to see it showing up as a replacement in the out years. But because it's a problem child, and it's been running up extensive repairs, it's probably the one that we should get rid of at this point.
Engine 10 is young, but we've had last year, over the last 20 months, $96,000 in expenses to it.
Okay.
Wow. So that's why it's not on the capital plan, because it's only 10 years old, right? So that's how it goes. So it had $96,000 of expenses, and so that's why we're getting rid of it, because we just can't continue. It's not going to get better. For whatever reason, it's been a problem from the very beginning. So that's why it hasn't been on the plan.
And you
Thank
said that
Joe.
was 96,000 in the past year.
20 months.
20 months, thank you.
20 months.
So in looking at the capital plan, essentially what we are doing is, because originally each engine 8, 15, and also engine 9 were looking to be replaced over the capital plan last year proposed, they essentially spread it out over the full 7 years. So now we're condensing that, so we're going to, we would be bonding these trucks within, or this apparatus all at once, instead of spreading it out over time.
I think the last bonding was 2019, 2020.
That was the latter, wasn't
For
it?
the fire.
Farmington Fire,
For Farmington Fire. And so if you can repeat your question again?
Yeah. The ones that are being replaced now were scheduled over a period of time. And now, instead of it being scheduled over that period of time, we're looking to accelerate it and do them all at once.
I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think what you've said is correct, but I think also is that because we haven't bonded fire trucks when we were supposed to, because we've deferred it. And so when we were basically, I think in the older plans, you had a fire truck being done almost every year or every other, but we didn't have to. So we pushed those out, so there's more fire trucks out there because we were not doing the fire trucks every year. So now it's time to do the fire trucks, and we have very much a problem child one, and then we had the one that was supposed to be done. So we've put them both together.
And you said the Quint has lower maintenance costs than the other two combined, like?
Well, it's gonna be brand new.
Okay.
So, gosh,
Knock on wood.
it better have lower maintenance costs. But it's a neat truck because both the Quint has water and it has a ladder. And so we don't have a ladder truck on that side of town. And so now this truck has both the water and the ladder. So it's a dual-purpose truck, and I think getting rid of the two and having that is, one, it's gonna be good that we have a ladder on that side of town, and two, is that getting rid of another truck and consolidating our fleet is a good thing.
And I just have a question more, in some ways, for my own interest, but are newer apparatus more fuel efficient, or are they all,
Maybe you
are
would
we
know that.
looking at any savings in that regard?
Yes, they are more fuel efficient. I think that with the focus on the environment through all sorts of government. I think that manufacturers such as Pierce, who manufacture both these apparatus, are doing their best to try to reduce emissions and be more fuel efficient, yes. So,
But there are also new diesel standards.
Right.
That these older trucks do not meet. So the new trucks are required to meet the new federal diesel standards. And that's part of the reason why the cost is also more for them.
Thank you. I don't have anything else.
Any other questions? Brian?
I've got one, just out of curiosity. The Quinn, since it's replacing 2 trucks, does that mean it's going to be doing twice the work or double duty?
no, in fact, it's capable of doing both aerial, the job of an aerial ladder, and it's capable of pumping a fire, which in the past it had to be two separate entities, separate apparatus. But they'll be responding on similar numbers of calls. It'll be all based on how we disperse the equipment on the engines and up to the chief in that particular house.
Okay. And I'm just curious, does that mean that, and God forbid it happens, but if there were 2 different fires in 2 different places, will we be down a truck that would be able to respond? And I'm just curious.
No, I wouldn't think so, because one would come from Farmington Fire, one would come from East Farms.
Beautiful.
Or we'd have mutual aid, one could come from Avon if something happens. We have mutual aid
Okay,
agreements.
no, I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
I think you would have a better response because you'd have 2 ladders in town that could both go to 2 different fires, where in the past, you'd have to call on Avon or Bristol to bring in another ladder truck.
Okay,
With the new Quint, you wouldn't have to do that.
even better. Thank you.
Sir.
Sarah? Anybody to the left here?
I'm just curious. What do you do with the old trucks? Do you sell them? Do you?
Yeah.
You do?
We try to sell them. Sometimes our old trucks go somewhere out of the country. They've gone in the past. They've been somewhere in the state, but we do try to sell the
Okay.
trucks.
The last one we had, we sold to the Farmington Polo Grounds. We had a ladder truck when we replaced it 2 years ago. The Farmington Polo Grounds actually purchased it from us. So, but some of them have gone to Argentina, some of them go to Vermont. There's several websites we use to try to sell them.
Very good.
What's the warranty on those? Like on the Engine 10, were we like a year out of warranty and this thing went, you
The
know?
warranty.
Usually the warranty is 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years, yeah.
Depends on what goes wrong with the vehicle. You know, the joke with Engine 10 was on the way here, it was built in Wisconsin. On the way here, it broke down in '84 and had to be towed back to Wisconsin. So,
Oh, man.
that was probably the forebearer for what we were going to have to experience over the next 10 years.
And are we getting this one from the same place or?
No.
No, we're not.
Oh, okay, that's good.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, so, and just to summarize, and I don't want to be overly repetitive, but so it sounds like in our long-range planning, we knew 8 was coming.
Yes.
And 10 is just for the functionality of just making sure the town has the appropriate fire service, we need to replace that as well.
Right.
Okay. And then I just want to make sure I'm clear on Brian's thing too. This new truck at Tunx's Hose, it's just, if there was a call for a fire that needed these 2 other trucks, both those trucks would go to the one place.
Right.
So it's not as though these trucks would have been split off. It's like if there was a call there'd be need, we would send 2 trucks. Now we're just sending 1 truck.
Right.
So we're not losing anything. We're becoming more efficient,
Right.
meaner, slimmer,
Right.
all that good
Exactly.
stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
And one of the things, and to Patty's point that she's mentioned a couple of times, is that one of the things with the capital plans and what we've done is that we've tried hard to plan it out for 7 years and do different things, but when we wind up deferring different things and doing other things to push things out, we got the plans done just recently, the fire plans, the police plans, and I think we have not yet really incorporated all of those new things into the 7-year plan, because we just got the new plans, but our architects have gone through all the buildings, and it is something that, potentially, actually, we have it, and it's a good point, we should probably do that, maybe for the March meeting, we could populate
That'd be great.
the out
Yeah.
years, because we did get the plan just for those purposes, is because our planning documents were getting outdated and a lot of them, again, it was getting closer and closer to the price. And one of the things, Amy, you were mentioning to me is that when we do the 7 years, we put estimates in as we're moving along. But as you get closer, you start getting documents and plans and studies. And now I think our estimates were out of date, and two, now we have this very comprehensive study, both for our fire stations and all our other buildings on roofs and things like that. So I think it would be helpful. We can populate it out for what we want to do.
The question I had on the Quint was, is this kind of apparatus been around for a while, or is it a response where firehouses are trying to look for efficiencies, so, the apparatus kind of came forward?
It's been around for a while. So I started in New Haven in 1998. They had a Quint in the firehouse already for 8 years. So it's been around for almost at least 30, 35 years. It's a really, really effective way of responding to calls, because you have the best of both worlds. You have a ladder and you have water, which is the two ingredients to put out a fire.
Is there special training required for operating this out? Seeing that it's got two kind of major response elements.
We're very lucky in town because most of the volunteers are really good. They're qualified to use the pump. It might take a little learning to do the ladder at the same time, but it's not a 1 year training. They could probably do it in a few days. It's just actually going out and putting their hands on it. And that would be fine.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, next item.
Okay. For the cash, we have a couple of items. We have $70,000 for turnout gear, $100,000 for a communication upgrade, and $100,000 for the fire station renovations. And for that, the turnout gear, funds will be used to continue the replacement plan for turnout gear. The town has an ongoing replacement plan for turnout gear. All gear must be maintained in good condition. Gear for the town's 125 firefighters is set to be replaced every 10 years. There is also something, and I'm sure some of you have heard, it's the cancer prevention, is that the town is starting to provide more turnout gear for active firefighters. A set is to be washed immediately while providing a second set of gear for them to continue to respond to calls for service. So there's new things that are coming along like that. The turnout gear is the most I don't know, would you say it's the most important? It's the most important. It's what they wear to go into fight fires. So we've really made a conscious effort to have a program, a plan, and to make sure all our volunteers and career firefighters have the correct turnout gear. Our communication upgrade, and where is that? Right here, communication upgrade. Funds will be used to finish the last phase of a multi-phase communication program to replace the mobile and portable radios. Phase 4 is our Tungus hose officers and the director, the fire marshal, safety officers, portables, and also some of the engines. This is the first substantial replacement since the 90s, meaning we're on phase 4 of it, but this is the first time that we've replaced all of that. And I think that's it for that one. And fire station renovations, as you know, is that we've been looking to do a fire station project. We had hired an architect that has put together what needs to be done in all of our main fire stations. This would be to hire an architect to start developing plans once the council sets up a building committee for the fire stations. And so this would be an architect.
Questions for them? Go ahead.
It's not for this year, but I see in the out year live fire training facility. Is that in Farmington or is?
Yep, we have our live training facility that's next to the, behind the Water Pollution Control Authority that we share with Avon.
Then that leads to my question of, did we ever use AFFF firefighting foam? And if we,
No, everything that was in town has been mitigated.
Okay, thank you.
All set, yep.
One.
All the problem stuff has been removed. It was removed about probably 7-8 years ago.
Thanks.
Everything's been taken out.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Tom, thank you very much, and please
Good evening,
extend our
everyone.
thank yous to our volunteers and paid.
Next, we have Russ Arnold, our Director of Public Works and our town engineer. Hello, Russ. What should we start with?
What page you want to start with for this?
Start with engineering.
2?
I guess, yeah, page 2. All right, so in engineering, Russ has 2 items. We have $25,000 for environmental compliance. This will be funds to be used for stormwater testing and permitting. He also has in the other funds is $680,000 for the Meadow Road sidewalks. The funding source of this is $500,000 is from our STEEP grant from the state of Connecticut, and $180,000 for the LoCIP, which equals $680,000. Funds will be used to design and construct sidewalks on Meadow Road from New Britain Avenue to Plainville Avenue, and we've talked about that. So that's his 2 items on engineering.
Okay. Questions? Patty?
Of course.
I didn't even look.
I know I've asked this question before, and I can't remember. Why are the environmental compliance funds in capital and not operating?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, sure.
Basically because we're not sure of the costs every year and what we're going to do. And it's a banking mechanism, so that we have the funding for the unfunded mandate from Connecticut DEP.
The MS4 and everything
MS4, exactly. So we have recently hired a consultant to help us with our stormwater outfall testing. And we include that as part of our permit and results from that. It is a lot of time and effort with our 800-plus outfalls that we have. And now with the different requirements with the permit that DEP has created, that we have to do dry weather testing and sampling, it's just more money and time and expense that that we just don't have the bodies and personnel for.
Yeah, the permits.
We do a lot with very little, and this is just one of those things that for years we went out, I personally went out and sampled, myself and Bruce Sear, for about 8 years. And it just got to be too much. When the permit changed, we just couldn't keep up, and we started hiring a consultant to help us out, which is relatively inexpensive compared to having another full-time employee.
So essentially, the 25,000 is banked, and then whatever you need in a given year you use, but that way, when they come up with some other big, expensive thing, you have the funds and you're able to do it.
Correct, because as the operating budget goes away every year.
Right, okay, that makes
Being that
sense.
it's unfunded, and we know how the operating budget goes, and as you mentioned before, with our 7-year capital plan, we have a great plan, but we don't fund it. We fund the bare minimum. So this is one thing that we have to do, and we can't just get away with not funding it. So, again, the best laid plans are great on paper, but when you have to put your money where their mouth is, we just don't do it.
Right.
We just can't sustain it.
Which leads nicely into my another question. In prior years, I saw funding for bridge repairs, rails to trails, riverbank stabilization that now all seems to be pushed. How many of these are safety concerns in terms of?
I could say all of them.
Right.
Depends on what glass you want to look through. The rails to trails money we use, we spend that. What was the other thing? The riverbank stabilization. I tried, got to be 6, 7, 8 years ago now, to get a project when the embankment failed from the 07 flooding, or 11 flooding, I'm sorry. And we finally came to fruition. We applied for hazard mitigation funding. First couple times, didn't get accepted. The third time, I think, third or fourth time we got accepted, took it to a couple levels up and had a meeting on site, and they told us to plant trees on the embankment, and that would stabilize it. So unless somebody here has some way of doing that with no money involved, they kind of wash their hands of it. So it's there. We have a sewer trunk line that's about 20 feet away from the top of the slope that carries about 2.5 million gallons a day and goes through the siphon. The river at there is part of the Lower and Wild Scenic. It has the eastern clam in there. So I've brought that all up. It is what it is. So depending on what, again, I go back to what kind of glass you're looking through, what is the emergency? And what's a requirement? Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of money to put into something like that. It's, knock on wood, it's been stable through our storms. So it's holding at this point. It's
And I-
nothing that is.
Right, and I think, Russ, your point, though, and again, we haven't said it tonight, I haven't said it, is that, as I said it when we spoke at the public hearing, is that we had a $1 million capital budget last year, which is
Right.
substantially low. But in general, our capital budgets, I would say, are relatively, they move us forward, but there's always more, and there's things that, again, that have moved on this plan that we'd like to see, but for whatever reason, the balance and different things, other priorities take place. And, if I feel, and Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, if something is where we really, really feel that there's some sort of true safety thing, or it's by law and you environmentally have to do it, that's why you see it. And that's why you see, like last year, you'll see environmental compliance. That's why you'll see in the chief's budget, the technology, because it was an unfunded mandate. Those are the only things that we were doing either by law or that we were required to do, in general.
They become a priority.
Priority.
And I'm out there quite a bit. I watch the embankment. It's stable. And trust me, if there was some need for money, I would be here.
Okay.
It's nothing that we just, we didn't get funded and I toss it and I don't think about it ever again. It stays on my radar, as do all these projects. And there was one other, what was the other one you mentioned?
Bridge.
The bridge repairs. Several years ago, we did had a consultant go and do looked at the Big Bird Bridge and Trestle. Came up with a plan for repairs. They weren't necessary at the time. That plan is due again. We work with the Connecticut DOT on scour critical structures, one of them being the Meadow Road Bridge, that we are now looking at talking with the DOT's bridge liaison to replace that bridge. And one thing that you all may or may not be aware, we go after a lot of money. We do a lot of work in town for our road system and the applications, and we pay for a lot of things through grants that we get through CROG and the DOT. So we're very fortunate in that aspect. That bridge replacement pretty much will be 100% free money.
That was going to be my next question. Okay.
So we don't, listen, I live here. It's
I
my
know.
tax dollars too. I'm not complaining about the not funding the capital. I get it. We do what we do, and that's one of the things I'm proud of. We do a lot with very little. I'll go back and I'll digress, and I know I'm going to get in trouble later on. But when we did the track back in '05, I came to the council. We found out we had a problem with our track back then. We were going to replace the surface, but found out we didn't have any base underneath it. I came and I was cashing in dump trucks. I was cashing in pretty much our whole capital program to pay for it. And Bruce Chudwick, who was the chair at the time, disagreed, and we ended up getting most of our capital. But I get it, like it's our money. So we're not just sitting here going, if I don't get it, I'm going to give you a new project next year. These things still stay on our radar, and we do a lot with our highway department, our parks department, treatment plant. We're very proud of our guys and what we do. And they get it. They've bought into the program. So when we get money, we spend it wisely, and we spend it like it's our own dollars. And for a lot of us, it is. So I just want you to understand that.
Yeah.
I live here, I grew up here, and
Right. Oh, I
this
do.
is
I just.
my money too, so.
Yeah, I know last year was a tough year. Year before, or maybe 2 years before that with COVID was also a tough year. So.
It's been tough for a lot of years.
Yes. Yes.
But no, it is what it is. But if something is in dire need, I will be here and be able to explain it to you and explain why we need to do something. So, but they are on our radar.
Okay. Thanks.
Is there anything else in the engineering?
I just had one quick question, and that is, So you were talking about, Russ, thanks for everything you and your team do. I've gotten to work with them a little bit more this year for the first time. They're good, great people to work with. And we're talking about free money. I know that the Bicycle Advisory Committee is working with your team on some grants for that, you know, the cup handle exchange for a safe crossing for bike safety. And it seemed pretty substantial. I'm just curious to know, when does something like that make it to the capital plan, since we're also putting in funds for other plans? And here, I'm just curious where that comes into play, and does it get represented here?
It doesn't, not at this point. It depends on what funding is required. If it's 100% match, it would be something that would come through Kathy in a manager's report to let everyone know that we got the grant or we've applied for it.
Okay.
If there's a matching portion of the grant, typically the Connecticut DEP grants are not matching.
Oh, okay.
I'm been working with Dylan Riley,
Yeah.
who's the liaison. He's working on that application, and I think the application is due, but there is no funding requirement.
Right, oh, okay.
At this
So it's only
point.
if we have to fund something.
Right.
So if we have to fund
Okay,
something,
that was my question.
And it'll go back to what Patty was bringing up before. It's not on the plan because
Yeah.
the grant application just came out. So I'm going to apologize to you now if you'll see something next year on the capital plan that we're going to need funding for that matching portion. But that's a typical thing that happens when these grants come up and we're able to apply for them, we go after them.
And thank you for that, because you do a great job at that.
Yeah, we
So I was just
get
curious
quite
if
a
it
bit of
needed to
money.
be reflected here or not, even if it was a pass-through, but I guess
Yeah.
not.
No, we're not trying to hide anything.
Didn't think
We
you
just,
were.
I don't know what the number is, if there is a number. So when that comes up, you'll be right
No,
on
I'm
the top of the
excited
list.
about it, thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody else for engineering?
All right, the next one is Highway and Grounds. We have 3 items, $25,000 for capital projects miscellaneous, $300,000 for a dump truck in the Highway Department, and $85,000 for a mower. The capital projects miscellaneous, one of the things, again, is that with our operating budgets being relatively tight, there's not a lot of money that can be used and that is available for projects that come up. And I'll give you an example of one, is when you walked in right now to the stairs in the front of the town hall. Something like that happens. Needs to be repaired. The reason why it hasn't been repaired now is just not good time in the middle of winter to do what you need to do. But that number, whatever that number would be more than what we put in the town hall for our general maintenance, a couple of $1,000s. Things like that come up all the time, so we have a capital projects miscellaneous. Russ has very good people in his Highway and Grounds and Parks people that have the ability to do a lot of just basic kind of maintenance and repair work. Something happens at the Staples house, the roof on top has to be done. We can, instead of calling a contractor in, we have a capital projects guy that can help some of that. Instead of putting it in the operating budget, which the operating budget can't afford on the targets that we have, we put in a lump sum in the capital. And that itself isn't really enough either, but at least when something happens, we don't let it sit. Or one of the things that has been very helpful over the course of years is that because we have this and we have another one for building, for equipment, like vehicles, you'll see that later on, is that in the old days, and that's maybe 10 years ago, what would happen is that you still have to fix these things. And whether maybe it's not Russ's guys, but we now have people that have that skill set, you have to call in and get it fixed. And it costs money, and we don't have money in the operating budget to do it. And so what would happen is that you'd wind up slowing down accounts and not doing other things in the accounts that you are supposed to be doing to pay for these miscellaneous things that happen. And any organization, you're going to have unexpected repairs, and you can't not put money in the operating budget to do it. You have to either do it this way or do it that way. And so this is something that we've been doing over the last quite a few years, doing either capital projects miscellaneous and also equipment miscellaneous that helps us with our $14,000 fire truck that breaks down. And so, we use that money for something like that. The dump truck, and Russ will speak to that. We, I think, did not do a dump truck last year.
We did one.
We did one, but we are missing one year, talking about making up dump trucks. One of the years, not too long ago, we didn't do a dump truck. Instead, we missed a year. We usually do a dump truck every year. Again, if Russ had his druthers, we could use 2 dump trucks. We could use 2 dump trucks because they really need to be replaced every year to keep up with them. The one that we have that we didn't replace, we have more maintenance issues on it. and which brings me to why we have to have this account for maintenance stuff. But the dump trucks are very expensive, and I think that, we feel comfortable that $300,000, we can't afford a $600,000 in our policy. But again, Russ, the mechanics, and everyone do a really good job of trying to keep our dump trucks. It's the ones that do the snow plowing primarily. So that's that. And again, all our equipment, all our vehicles with I think it's, as you probably realize, has become very, very expensive. The prices have gone up a tremendous amount. Police cars, dump trucks, everything have gone up. The prices are just off the charts. And a mower, and this is to replace an existing 2008 mower. And just for the dump truck was 1998. So 1998 is, so they're not young. So those are his three cash in the highway department. And just so you can kind of look, if you see as you go out in the plan, next year, 750, 504, but it has some other bonding and different things. But, I think when we see Russ's capital for the highway and grounds, you're probably talking if we had, at least double, probably even more than that of what we would like to fund. But, we get by.
Any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
At the high school bleachers, I'm assuming they're not ADA compliant. Are we at any risk of any type of liability or violations? Because I know that I was on council in 2018, they were, out 2 years then, so they just keep moving down.
So, yeah, so they are not ADA compliant.
Right.
And as part of the high school project, we've looked at making them accessible from the upper road. So
Which will make them,
it will help.
help them. in
It will help, yes.
All right, and that's part of the high school project?
Correct.
Incorporating that, okay, thank you.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else in the highway and grounds?
I got a question for you about the mower. Was that the mower we tried to get a year or two ago?
Yes.
Just because the other one was overdue.
Right.
I'm curious to know, just because I'm curious, we're getting another mower for Westwoods. Is that a similar brand? That we
Yes.
want to get the two at the same time for a reduction?
Yep.
That's how you roll?
Try.
See, now you're making me ask these questions.
I don't need to make him ask anything, Brian. But no, it's, those two mowers are frontline mowers. They're used pretty much every day. And with our, how many acres of fields do we have, Bill? An awful lot. So we have, Punxsutawney Mead, all the schools, we maintain the school fields
Yeah.
as well. So they're very busy, and it's year-round. Well, excluding the winter, obviously. But it is, they're 8, 9 months out of the year, they're mowing. So, yeah,
Thanks. I was just curious to know if we could
yeah.
put them together and get a better price.
Nope, we try to, yeah,
I know that's how you roll.
yeah.
Anybody else?
I had a quick question. Burlington Road reconstruction,
Yes, sir.
where do we stand on that?
Bids open Friday,
Okay.
and that is a 100% funded through CROG, through the Lot SIP program. Our estimate was $3.6 million.
And if the bids kind of fall in where we need them to be, then we can move on out.
Can do what?
We can move on, we can move into construction
100%. We're
Yep.
going to be in construction this summer.
this summer.
Yeah,
Well, you'll actually, will see the bid, because.
in 2 weeks.
It'll come to you for award. once
Right,
the state
right.
approves it.
It'll come to
Yeah.
it,
You'll
but,
probably see the actual bid award, or make the bid award, probably April, I would guess, if the state approves it.
Yeah, at the earliest,
Yeah.
yeah.
We don't have anything else on Russ's, but one of the things I did,
Westwoods.
oh, Westwood's mower, sorry.
We got the mower and the other one.
I'm sorry, I'm ready to get rid of you, Russ.
I know, I stepped
Oh,
on
we
a
sort of
lot.
covered the Westwoods mower. With
Yeah, that's-
Brian hit on it for us.
So the Westwoods Golf Course is $85,000 for a 2001 fairway mower to replace that. As we said, used most days in the summer, and the current mower is rusted and busted. That's my notes.
How many, ballpark, how many mowers we have in our, whole fleet? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Let me check my list.
Go ahead.
What was the question?
How many mowers we have in our whole
Oh,
fleet? I was
yeah.
just
We
curious.
probably have about a dozen.
About a dozen, yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
That may, yeah, we probably about 15 if you include the greens mowers,
yeah.
things like that, yeah.
Okay. The greens mowers has to be a specific type of mower to do the greens.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
And just
specialty
the cost
item.
of having a golf course.
Right.
Yeah.
It's gotta-
The other item we have for Russ is $50,000 for the Westwoods Club house improvements. This is to replace and expand the existing 40-year-old deck at the clubhouse. And I don't know if, this is one of the things that Russ and I have been talking about for quite some time, is that we're looking forward to being able to do that back patio at the clubhouse. If anyone is a golfer and has been out there, it really needs to be done. And so we're excited to be able to do that this season.
That's, I mean, I think now's the time to do it too with the other improvements that are gonna come to that area, right?
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
make it a-
Exactly. Yep, I think that's under Nancy.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And then the last one is the Tinty Barn improvements, and that's coming, that's on, if you're familiar with the Tinty Farm on Main Street, Route 10, and funds will be used to continue the multi-year program to restore the Tinty Barn. Also, we do own the Hine Farm Barn too, and so that barn needs some work too. So we try to every so often do some work on it to keep the barn standing, and we had a plan done on the Tinty barn, and we've been chipping away on the different things that need to be done on that. And so this will be $25,000. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've been saving our money to do a bigger project over there.
Right, we have, like I said, we have a plan. We initially thought about piecemealing it, and we actually have done some stuff to stabilize the barns. But now we've been setting aside money. With this money, we'll probably have close to $100,000 that we can just go in there and do all the work that needs to be done. One of the problems with these barns is they are old barns, they are specialty barns. It takes a special type of contractor to do it. It's like posting beams and stuff. There's not a lot of people out there that do that type of work.
Well, we just had a tour today at the Land Trust property where they did their barn over. Was that part of the deed when Tinty left the property?
It was well, the barn came with the property.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any questions about the?
Amy.
Amy, go ahead.
Excuse my ignorance here, but what do we do with those barns?
Not much.
Nothing.
Okay, they were just given to us?
They were given to us as part of the
So we were
property.
just trying to maintain?
Maintain them, yeah.
Okay,
This is Farmington.
curious.
Part of our character.
Yeah. And
All right.
But there's also the safety concern with the barns.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask
Yeah.
about, how concerned, because I mean, it's our property, right? So
Right.
if somebody's in there messing around and it falls over, it's on us.
Right, exactly. And that's why we had it stabilized,
Yeah.
the Tinty Farm barn. And just one thing, and with Russ, he doesn't like to brag about certain things, but he did talk about some of the funding and things like that of CROG. And I think if we did do a study and see about some of the different towns and how much money the town of Farmington has received through CROG and the different things, I think we'd probably be very much on the top of the list between the last thing with the Burlington Road. It's substantial amounts of money. And really, it all comes to Russ's approach is that they want a lot of times shovel-ready projects, and he puts the grant in with it ready to go, and we seem to really get a substantial amount of grant funding for the town of Farmington, which helps us with our capital project. And you never say it enough, but it really, if we did a study and saw how much money we get from.
There's no money for the study.
No money for the study. But, no, he really does a super job with collecting money. We just put in a big grant. Notice how I said we. Just put a very large federal grant in for the Third Bridge project and we just got our endorsements for our 3 federal Congress people. They just sent stuff today from the DOT, and it's a 1.5 million grant for planning study for the Third Bridge. So it would be the next step on that, and we're really hopeful that we're going to get that grant. We have big support from the federal government and our people and the state and CROG, and so it's been a lot of work, and that's what you've been working on for getting us for that, so we're, cross our fingers on that one.
Well, thank you very much, Russ, as always.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're good?
We're good, Russ.
Want to talk roundabout a little bit, or?
Goodbye, Russ.
I say we get a bus and we drive the bus around. I'm on board.
It's always got to be somebody.
Yeah, absolutely, I'm good with it.
All right. Thanks, Russ.
I'm just not
Appreciate it.
driving.
Thank you.
Few people are going the wrong way. And we have Nancy Parent here. Hi, Nance. How are you doing?
Just finished my transportation grant.
All right,
Nancy,
where are we
working
starting
on
with
grant
Nancy
too.
here? We're going to do community relations first?
Hold
Community
on.
rec?
Where's that?
Hold on.
I'm ready.
Hold on.
C6.
Someone did my things the wrong way. All right, so Nancy is, we're going to start with Community and Rec on O, a dial-a-ride. Is that where you wanted to be, Joey?
Like, whatever you want, that,
Okay.
that piece.
All right, so this is a dial-a-ride bus, and this is a portion of it. Funds will be used to purchase a new dial-a-ride bus. This is a donation. If you remember, we had Marcy come in.
Shepherd Family
Marcy Shepherd, and we have an ongoing donation to help us fund our dial-a-ride. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is our portion of our 20, is it our 20% or Nancy? It's our 20% of the portion to buy the dial-a-ride van, and it comes from the donation from Marcy. So again, thank you to Marcy. It's a great donation for us that we're going to get. So that's one item. The next item Nancy has is recreation facility improvements. And this is $150,000. Funds will be used for the additional cost associated with the construction of the splash park and pickleball courts at the Westwoods Golf Course. So that is our,
That's actually, that's that one.
I'm
That's
sorry.
the one below.
That's the one below.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm sorry, that's
The 150, right?
the 150. Yep, that's the grant.
Put in this one. Is the
Oh, I'm
recreation
sorry.
facility.
I'm sorry, I got myself confused.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that one first. So it's the 150 for the Westwoods Recreation Facility, and that's for the additional cost for the pickleball and the splash park. And then the last item is the recreational facility improvements, and that fund comes from the Recreation Fund, and funds will be used to install fencing or netting at the Tungus Mead softball field and reconstruct the Tungus Mead soccer field concession stand. That's a public-private partnership with the soccer club for the concession stand. So they'll be putting money up, and we'll be putting money up, and then the majority of the money is being used for fencing or netting at the softball field at Tungus Hose, and that comes from the Recreation Fund. So those are her three items.
Any questions?
Just a quick one. Recreation fund, is that from the fees that people pay?
Yes.
to participate?
Yep, it's the excess at the end of each year based on our fund policy.
Yep, thank you.
Anybody else?
The netting that's new netting, that's not replacing, so that's, okay. And is that on the foul side, or is that on the for home runs?
That's for the baseball, softball fields to make it high enough so that balls don't go over and hit.
Okay.
people.
In the outfield, okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I meant outfield or on the foul poles. Okay, cool.
Higher.
These guys just getting way too strong, just pop them over.
I know.
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you, Nance.
Thank you.
All right. and
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
What have
Good
we
night,
had
everyone.
not hit?
Thank you.
Our town manager? All right. All right, so the next item is in our town manager account. We have three items, technology, town hall improvements, and building and equipment repairs. So $100,000 for technology.
C5.
$100,000 for technology improvements. Funds in this account will be used for firewall replacement, council chamber technology upgrades, and sewer infrastructure replacement. $125,000 in town hall improvements. Funds will be used to hire an architect to complete a plan to renovate of the current town hall and begin baking funds for the renovation of that project. So when we all move out to the the new 1928 Town Hall, and $50,000 for building equipment improvements. And this is what I was alluding to earlier, is funds will be used for unanticipated repairs to various town buildings and equipment as the need arises. So the fire trucks or a piece of, a dump truck, things of that nature. So those are our three items in the town manager's account.
For the firewall stuff, are we working with, does Brian work with Matt, obviously?
Yep, they work hand in hand on a lot of the different things.
So they marry the two together?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for them?
The stuff with council chambers and what are those improvements, those are all being done with the mindset of it's either we'll have further use in whatever this building is used for or can come with us to the next building?
And the council chambers is anticipated to be used for the council even when we move up
Oh, okay.
there. Yeah,
Shows what I know.
yeah. So it will be still, so one of the big things is like this screen here and some other things for technology and things
Great.
of that nature.
Any other questions? Really?
Really?
Come on. You went 9 for 10. Let's go. All right. Thank you.
Did we hit them all?
I think that's it.
Joe, did we hit them all? I think we did. I'm getting myself confused because whoever put the staple on this put it on the wrong side. So, yeah, all right, so we hit all our items?
We hit our items. Yes, we did.
And so, as I stated before, is that, our capital policy has a certain amount for what we're looking at. This budget between the board and the town is higher than that capital policy. I think that you would expect that I'm going to reduce the capital to get it down to what at least the policy says. We're almost done with the budget, between the grand list growth, between the debt that's coming, I think it doesn't make any sense for us to try to expand our capital policy more than that. So it'll be my recommendation that we at least start at the capital policy, and hopefully, as the council looks at it, we can stick close to that capital policy when it comes down to the budget.
And based on what you had said in the beginning, the CIP policy is 2.5 of the budget goes toward capital improvements.
Yep.
And then traditionally, it's been split between municipal and BOE.
Yep.
And the municipal side is, you're just under, right? You're half of that allotment?
Yeah, it's the proposed capital budget, general proposed right now is, what is it, 3.4? Do I have the number right? Yeah, $3,468,250.
Okay.
You usually do 2.5 of the annual general fund, and typically we split 50/50.
Yeah.
So that would be, the new number would be,
It's down here.
new number would be,
Should be around 2.6.
2.2880.
yeah, meeting the policy, there it is, 2888. And so
Okay.
we're at 3468, and it would be 2880. Typically, if you took that and split it in half, it would, that would be the
1.4.
50/50.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so 288 divided in half, 1.4.
Approximately 1.4.
144, and then so the town is under, the municipal side is under by, like.
A little bit,
yeah, like-
$80,000.
Yeah, it's like 10 grand about,
Yeah.
give or take.
So, and that's for the portion of the capital paid out of operating, not accounting for.
Just cash,
Not
yeah.
for not counting bonding.
Not counting bonding,
Cool.
cash.
All right. Any other questions? Well, obviously, before we get into all the budget talks next month, if you do have anything that comes up, please email your questions to Kathy so we can roll through March pretty smoothly. So thank you, Joe, Kathy, Kat, for all your work.
Thank you. And that's it on my end.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, right? So we discussed everything, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We have nothing for executive session. I think the Farmington High School boys basketball team won their semifinal
Oh, good.
game.
They were on the way with like a minute and a half left.
So we'll just pray.
Just jinx 'em.
No, it's over, so either they won or lost by now. So hopefully they won, so hopefully it's a congratulations to them, and we'll call for adjournment.
I I make a motion to adjourn the 2/27/2024 Town Council meeting.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:36. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.